Congressman, today you said the word explosives, and you didn't mean it in a metaphorical sense. I think rocked a lot of people sort of back on their heels hearing you talk about a recent DOJ filing that indicates that in addition to all the other weapons that we've heard about, at least one member of these extremist groups brought grenades, brought military ordnance grenades with them to January 6th. How significant is it to the investigation, what you've been able to uncover, what the Justice Department has been able to uncover about weapons, about ammunition, about the degree to which the crowd was armed and the degree to which President Trump knew it?
Well, I think it's an essential thing, Rachel, for the American people to understand, because I think everybody gets the point that Donald Trump used these extremist groups, but they used him too. And they used him in order to build a functioning street fascist alliance, essentially. I mean, we saw the creation of a mass fighting street army by the extreme right for the first time in our lifetimes. And compare where they were in Charlottesville with around 500 people, and now they are the frontline stormtroopers of a rally of 30 or 40,000 people, and they come very close to knocking over the government of the United States. So he bolstered them, he built them up, he expanded their numbers, but he also ended up getting a lot of them in trouble. And of course, when other people get in trouble, Donald Trump's nowhere to be found unless it's someone he thinks he can still use in the future. And I will note in this regard that there were pardons rendered to several people who ended up being important organizers of the extreme right. And one of them was Roger Stone. Another was Michael Flynn, as you saw today. And also there was a pardon given to Steve Bannon.
On that point about Flynn and Stone, Cassidy Hutchinson testified that Trump told his chief of staff, Mark Meadows, the night before January 6th, on January 5th, that he should put in a call to Mike Flynn and to Roger Stone. And Cassidy Hutchinson testified she didn't know what happened on that call. We know that both Flynn and Stone have taken the fifth. Does the committee know more about that call? I mean, given what you've been able to expose about the ties between Stone and Flynn to these armed extremist groups and what they were planning, and the fact that the president was seeking to get in contact directly with them the night before it all went down, do you know more about that communication between the president and them the night before January 6th happened?
Well, it's another excellent question, and I'll just tell you that our investigation continues. I hope that message got through today. We know a lot more today than certainly we knew during the impeachment trial about these connections and relationships. But we hope to know a lot more in a month or two than we know today.
Wow. Congressman Jamie Raskin of the January 6th investigation. Sir, you deserve a full night's sleep. I'm sure you won't get one. But thank you for being with us tonight.